household air pollution and traditional cooking posed a much bigger challenge for me as an individual. When I started working with the mud cook stove in whatever structure we were operating earlier, I realized the shift that it had the potential to create. So in many families where you have intergeneration dynamics, the older lady would probably continue to cook on the chulhas, but the younger generation is preferring to cook on something that is going to save her time, and it's convenient.
Cooking in general is a very cultural thing, correct? When you talk about this transition which happens, right? Are there certain do's and don'ts you say, you applied at your end as you approach these communities?
In this recent visit we made over there, I just asked them that, when you're not doing any cooking, majority of the cooking on the traditional chula, why don't you get rid of it? Let it not be there in your kitchen. But very clearly I was told by the household that, we cannot break this chula because it's been built by our ancestors and it is part of our cultural identity. So we cannot break it. We will keep it, but we will just use it for, like very small tasks. Somebody told me once that, I think your chulha saved you.
I can actually visualize a process map, it's like, and to every individual household probably would have their own process map in the way they...
Yeah, but if they don't know, then how will they make a choice? And, what we can do through our work and, the kind of work that you're doing is to make sure that we reduce that gap by exposing them to the technology.
I watch cooking change the cook, just as it transforms the food.
Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue.
Hello and welcome to Between Us. Make every conversation count. In every episode of Between Us, we have people who come over and share their personal stories that make a difference on the ground. And in today's episode, I am in conversation with Nitisha Agrawal. Nitisha is the founder of Smokeless Cookstove Foundation, SCF, and it's an initiative dedicated to transforming the lives of rural, migrant, and tribal population. I'm going to talk to her about how she's transforming the lives of villages and communities across the country, talk to her about her recent projects and what holds for the future. Nitisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about the work which SCF is doing. So let's begin with the importance and why this journey matters to you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for
My pleasure.
Providing Smokeless Cookstove Foundation and our work a platform. Why this journey is important for me, somebody told me once that, I think your chulha saved you. So it just flipped the whole narrative around for me, where a lot of times when people like me who transition from a successful corporate career into development sector, the whole thing is attached that, I want to give back to the society, etc., etc. I never found that narrative resonating with me. Because if it is about giving back, then there is a transaction involved in it. And I don't think my journey is about transaction. It is about discovering something that is a continuous learning process. And Smokeless Cookstove Foundation became that tool for me, where it is about constant learning, continuous improvement, and an adventure of sorts that leads me to chapters of my life that I could have possibly never imagined. And in that journey, if we are able to create something that is of relevance to our partner communities to help them transition from point A to point B and create a mindset for more, appetite for more, then that works.
When you started off, I'm sure you were mindful of some of the challenges, and the rest probably would have followed you through the journey, right? Talk me through first the inspiration and what made you decide, come what may, I'm going to get into this. Has it anything to do with your mundane corporate experience you wanted to get out of it? Or was there something more?
I'm going to address challenges a little later. But I think it has always been that curiosity that I have as a person, that something that tickles my imagination continuously, and that restlessness that is very innate nature of mine that has led me to where I am today.
Is it your love for photography, trekking,
No, I
traveling?
don't have a singularly defined love for anything.
Mm-hmm.
In a moment, I can do photography. In a moment, I can do art. In a moment, I can trek. In a moment, I can dance. In a moment, I can cook. So much. And, I kind of dropped the narrative that I'm good at this. I'm good at that. This is my passion. I think I'm more comfortable in a space where I can pick up reasons to keep fanging that curiosity and find inspiration in anything that can tickle my imagination.
Okay.
So having that mental framework of a 5-6-year-old who asks a lot of questions and who wants to know more, I think that's pretty much it for me. And Smokeless Cookstove Foundation is an expression of that. And it will continue to be an expression of that for as long as the curiosity remains alive.
And we were talking about some of the challenges.
Challenges.
Right? Yeah.
Well, when you take somebody from a glamorous corporate profession and is set up and is on a path to set up an NGO, you have no idea what it's going to throw your way. And I realized what a challenge it is to set up a not-for-profit after I had set it up. Right from appointing a wrong CA and a wrong CS and not knowing what it means to get the compliances for me to be able to seek funding. I used to find it like absolutely, I used to be like, what is the problem? I have a donor on one side. I have a project on the other side. What do you mean that, it's not simple enough for me to be able to do it? And only because I had to get certain kind of donation from a corporate did I actually set up the structure. Otherwise, I was very happy operating as a project level framework where I said, जो भी expense है, वो देख लेना. Let me continue to do my work. But then I realized that, for me to be able to do more, I need a structure. But to get to that structure was a nightmare. And there was nobody who could advise me in the right direction at that point in time. And nobody could advise me that should I do a Section 8, should I do a trust, all of that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do what sounds right to me. We'll see what happens. And it was a nightmare. I lost a lot of money initially. And then finally, I think the stubbornness was so much that then I found a set of people who have been with me from, let's say, after the initial couple of years of compliance-related structure coming with the NGO. Now I know that, my environment is safe in terms of operating. External challenges of finding the right-minded partner, the right kind of funding structures, I am okay to handle all of that challenges.
Rocket stuff technology. Did you? How did this come into being? Because I think that's the technology on the basis of which your foundation's work
Yes.
goes on, right?
So completely unplanned, and in the zone where I was in my corporate job and my time trekking in the Himalayan region, I made some connections with people who were working in the innovations and the product design space, using rocket stove technology and with their own, own reasons. Uh, and uh, and then when I left my corporate job, that was one place I wanted to explore more. And I kind of decided to spend some time with what was being done in terms of product design through this project. And I joined hands with a couple of people at that point in time to set up a social enterprise called Himalayan Rocket Stove, which was a for-profit setup in developing stoves for space heating using rocket stove technology
in those areas,
in
those
Himalayan
regions.
region. Yes, the company is still very much there. It's a social enterprise. And then parallelly, this the mud-based version of it emerged as I would say, a sidestep, which I got interested in because I while that is for profit and it solves a very, very specific problem related to the Himalayan region. For me, cooking, household air pollution and traditional cooking posed a much bigger challenge for me as an individual. And when I started working with the mud cook stove in whatever structure we were operating earlier, I realized the shift that it had the potential to create. Then the question remained, how do we structure for this to become accessible to more and more people? And that's when the foundation came about. But simply, rocket stove technology is an open source technology. Very many people use this technology to create backyard stoves for, doing a better way of cooking. In the West, a lot of camping stoves are designed based on rocket stove technology. Because it's a clean combustion principle where you create a fire chamber and you're able to burn the same amount of firewood but much more efficiently. So your output is efficient as compared to a traditional chulha where 70-80% of the output that you get is wasted because there's no burn chamber. So it's a simple design intervention.
Awesome, Nitisha. So a lot of things to talk to you about. And we have a structure which is segment wise, and we'll move segment by segment and continue this conversation. So, Nitisha, we begin with the first segment, what matters. And when we talk about what you are doing at this point in time, innovation plays a very important role, right? Do you have programs or workshops that actually foster local innovations?
Well, our programs do not have the opportunity to foster local innovation because we have a specific role that we like to kind of, start our work with. And that's important to establish within the partner communities that we work with. But as we go along in our work with the communities, because of the fact that, we're able to connect very many dots, sometimes if there is an opportunity that arises to foster something that is happening locally, then I would like to say that, we can provide a platform. So if we just kind of look at replace innovation with indigenous practices, or some of the nuances that the tribal communities practice that are very sustainable and very, very crucial to not only kind of look at the way they live, but has a very positive impact on the environment. The idea of a Smokeless Cookstove Foundation is to also document such practices. And that is becoming more and more crucial in the overall narrative of climate change and the role that local communities, indigenous communities play, because a lot of things that they do are sustainable. A lot of their living ways are very sustainable. Case in point that they will never take anything that they don't require from their environment. And if at all they do, then they tend to replace it. So that's very, very, that's the way they live. What they grow, what plants they have in their environment, what crops that they are sowing and harvesting in rhythm with the patterns of climate, that is all best practices that we can learn from. So it's not even about innovation. It's about understanding and acknowledging what some of the practices already exists. And then through our work, to an extent, at least bring them to certain sections of the audience who may be interested in.
Because my next point was, I was veering towards community engagement and support, right? Because I think their involvement is very important for this initiative to succeed. Can you throw some light on some of the strategies you have kind of worked through to make sure that they are embedded in this program?
Yes. Firstly, the model itself is completely driven by the community, right from their willingness to participate. Willingness is very important because we cannot force anybody to participate in what we do. Willingness to participate, willingness to commit their time to learn and then to take it forward. Ability to be, to say yes to use what we are offering to them on a continuous basis, and then believing for themselves and then saying that, okay, now I think it works and now we would like to take it forward. That's of course the hygiene. But I can't keep going back to the same community every 2 weeks and start talking about the same thing again and again, right? Because, it's irritating that, I keep saying health concerns hai, jungle cut rahe hain, धुआं hai. Nobody wants to listen to the same set of problem statements again and again. Which is why understanding of how they live and what more can we do with them is very important to keep their interest alive in what we are trying to do. So whether it is working with them on some sort of a livelihood opportunity, whether it is connecting other organizations who are doing work that is relevant for them. We also very consciously, I try to bring collaborators in our programs. So if I have understood that, this community, there is no understanding of what savings are and women don't have understanding of operating their bank accounts. There are many organizations who have models that can be delivered on ground, and then we look forward to bringing them in through our work. So if an organization has an open door for me to work in a particular community, I would like to do that with some other organizations. Menstrual hygiene is another aspect that often is, there is a correlation with what we do, but it's not something that women are very open to talk about. But because we spend enough time with them, we know that, we can bring in some organizations who are at least talking about awareness. And that's something that, we want to do in our work in tribal communities. Skill building and capacity building, improving their native forms of art. For instance, the Warli communities in Talasri where we work, it's a geography that has abundant date palm. Now, date palm, everybody knows Neera and Toddy, because that's where this is what drives the village economy. But date farm fiber is also used to make mats and chatais and other utility items in homes of these tribal communities. There's also abundant use of bamboo that they do in, that they make utility items for their homes. Now, there is a skill, there is a craft, there is a nativity in that practice. But can we build their capacity in a way that it can become market friendly product and create a market for them. So many of their food practices, can we go forward and create certain types of foods that can be preserved and then sold? Now, also, this area has something called nachni, which is a buzzword for Mumbai urbanite. This is a nachni producing belt. But the women over there don't know that, this nachni is so sought after in the mega city that they are neighboring. So can we help them create certain nachni products that is, palatable for the Mumbai city? So these are the kind of smaller linkages that we try to work with through our work.
The opportunities are aplenty.
Yes. And that keeps the interest of the community alive.
Absolutely. Cooking in general is a very cultural thing, correct? When you talk about this transition which happens, right? Are there certain do's and don'ts you say, you applied at your end as you approach these communities? Maybe showing solidarity or respect, because sometimes they might say that, this is the way we do certain things, especially the men of the family or of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little anecdotal information that I understood, that the food habits change every 50 kilometer in India, much like the language and the dialect. So, and that's very interesting because, which is why the word choice is very important. So while our improved mud cook stoves may work very well in, let's say, central India, but it may not work in southern India, because, they make ragi balls and it has to be made at a certain height, whereas our cook stoves are taller because of the burn chamber that we need to create. Similarly, when you go to Northeast, there is a lot of smoke that is required to smoke their meat, which is for the purpose of preservation. So no improved cook stove will work over there, because here we are talking about a phenomena where we want to remove the smoke. So there is nothing right or wrong in this kind of work. It's about exactly what you said, acknowledging their individuality, their food practices, their cultural nuances. Even in Palghar, in this recent visit we made over there, I just asked them that, when you're not doing any cooking, majority of the cooking on the traditional chula, why don't you get rid of it? Let it not be there in your kitchen, because sometimes you may be tempted to use it. But very clearly I was told by the household that, we cannot break this chula because it's been built by our ancestors and it is part of our cultural identity. So we cannot break it. We will keep it, but we will just use it for, like very small task. Because we know that, the improved mud cook stoves work or LPG works. So this is something that is extremely important for me to accept and acknowledge. And when we do the training program, we start with the fact that, what we are sharing with you is an option. We would like you to use it. We would like you to try it. Under no circumstances we want you to get rid of what you were originally using. And having said that, I always say that this is an interim solution. The idea is for you to have the best possible option to cook cleanly so that, your health improves and your dependency on firewood can be reduced to a large extent. I would love for these kitchens to become completely smoke-free, but I view this as a start of the journey.
Sure. I think when the community starts to see the economic impact, and in many ways, economic impact also is directly proportional to people getting empowered, especially women, right? Have you seen that correlation working out? Do you see them getting more and more enthused about it, feeling more independent in the way they are leading their day-to-day lives?
Yes, because Our model is a livelihood-based model. So we're able to provide training to certain small groups, and then based on that training and further installation, they can earn income. This is where the energy entrepreneurship concept comes in, because eventually we cannot train. If I train everybody in the village, then who will they go and install the cook stoves in? And women, it's not easy for them to travel from, like, I can't ask a lady who's working with me in Palghar to come and work with me in Raigad. She won't be able to. Which is why we select groups of women, train certain numbers so that they are able to populate with what we are doing in their village. And then the idea is that these women should be able to take some small amount of money from the homes where they are installing the cook stoves to maintain the continuity of income generation. Because through our programs, we can only provide funding to a certain extent in the initial period. But after that, let's say in the village that I spoke about, we have maybe about 800 homes. So that's an opportunity for these women. Whether they'll be able to install our cook stoves in each and every household, we don't know. But that's the income opportunity for these women, which should be made available to them over a period of time. And then from improved mud cook stoves, you move to a better technology. So it takes time, it will take time for them to start making that correlation themselves. That if I'm saving 30 minutes of my time by cooking faster, then that 30 minute I can do something else or maybe rest out.
True.
It's saving me a trip to the forest. For instance, technology like induction, which is based on electricity. So your firewood dependency is completely, a non-factor. And we have data to prove that they spend 2 to 3 hours in collection of that firewood. Imagine a scenario when they start to cook 90% of their food on induction. It's a straight saving.
I think this is my thoughts here is that when we have an inclusive approach, when we actually invest ourselves into into their day-to-day life, into how they feel, I think the acceptance comes in quickly. It's still a slow process, but people realize that yes, but when we just go out there and tell them that this is how it's going to be, it'll never work. And I think that approach matters to me. I think what you guys do is really amazing.
It's a slow journey.
Yes. Almost every journey is like that. If you see how our civilization has evolved over a period of time, at the end of the day, it's not just you alone or the NGOs and the communities. There needs to be some kind of an effort at the policy level. And 2 questions. One, what kind of a support do you get at this point in time? And is that enough?
So I have not consciously stayed away from government collaboration in my projects because I'm operating at a very intimate level. But policies are important. For me, more than policies, schemes are important. So while I know that in the recent past, there have been many announcements related to solar energy and subsidies provided to remote and tribal communities, etc. And that's all positive work in the policy framework. But for individuals like me and organizations like mine who are working together with the community, we want a mechanism for that community to be able to access those schemes and subsidies.
Access those schemes, and I think that would, I think accountability also matters, right? Like,
well, I won't be able to say much on accountability, but for instance, the solar scheme which provides subsidy for the tribal communities, I've been talking to my partner community for this, but what we need is that that intelligence where they should be able to make use of it. Similarly,
The application.
Similarly, you have so many different policies that allow, so many different schemes that allow these individuals to have, the lights in their homes, or even build small ponds, or get subsidy for an agricultural tool that they require. So there's a lot of stuff that is available. The challenge is that how do we kind of make these subsidies accessible, and how do we instill the faith in the community to tell them that, look, there is a framework that is available for you. You also need to take some steps forward. So work has to happen at both ends. I do believe that none of these problems will be resolved unless and until there is a collaborative framework with government playing a big role in it.
Absolutely, because I think they are the biggest investors.
Exactly.
The kind of funds and resources they have.
Yeah, absolutely. But it cannot be done by government alone. Right? So that is why you have the non-government sector. The NGO sector, or the organizations that are working as humanitarian organization, or entrepreneurs, enterprises that are working at rural level. So, and the policy framework is the academic framework, but that also needs to include a very big voice from the field. Because if you are developing policies that is going to enable these sections of societies to access what you are creating, you need to also learn from them, hear from them, ask them the questions, whether the solar panel works for you or not. So simple stuff. When was the last that you that somebody helped you clean the panels? You have the panels, but are they functional? So much money goes into setting up, installing all these things like the street lights and everything. And one small storm and everything gets knocked out.
A constant checks and balances is required.
Which is where grassroots and the non-government sector comes in. So if there is a framework that, let's say, government would like to put into place, it makes sense, because what is last mile access and last mile delivery, right? So while we would want the government to be able to access each and every individual, but we know it's not possible. Absolutely. Which is why you have panchayats. And with panchayats, you need organizations that are advising them as to, what more can be done in terms of development. And fulfill certain gap areas. So it is collaborative. It can never be competitive.
Yes, it is collaborative. And that brings us to the end of our first segment, What Matters. So Nitisha, we come to the second segment of our podcast, and that is What's Brewing. What's Brewing is about what's happening, what's new around your foundation. So to me, what SCF does is building a lot of hope and optimism, right? Do you see the overall morale of the community when you now look back, when you started and where you are? How much has it changed? How much has it evolved?
So, Smokeless Cookstove Foundation has worked with many communities in almost about 14 states since the time we started this work. And unfortunately, it's difficult for me to keep a track of every community and every project. Not because I don't want to, but they come with a certain timeline that we work with. So let me try to answer this in context to our current project, which is happening in Palghar district of Maharashtra. We are working in 2 blocks. One is Mukhara and the other one is Talasari. And we started this work in January. So this would be our 6th month working with the community. And the difference from the time that we started to now is, I feel welcomed every time that I go to the village. And now I can walk into the homes of a lot of them without somebody accompanying me. Of course, there is somebody from the village who accompanies me, but now I know enough people who recognize me and in whose house I can go to and, have a chai or a glass of water. It doesn't have to be a conversation only about chulha. So that is a positive, very big positive for me. Secondly, now the conversations are a bit easier because having gone there multiple number of times and having done the kind of work that we are doing, uh, the ice breaking part is over. And now it's about forging that bond stronger. So everything else is functional, what we do, like, the impact side of it or the intervention side of it, that has to happen. But I think what is important is that trust, which only happens by continuous efforts, more from my side and less from their side, because I truly believe that I need to make that effort. And if I make that effort is when they will reciprocate. And their partial reciprocation is also more than enough. Because when they tell me that they are doing most of their cooking on the cook stoves that we install, that is good enough for me. We pick and choose some households where we study deeply the numbers. But the overall acceptance, acknowledgement and acceptance by the village where we work is what is most important. Because it also allows me to have conversations that are more. And now we are talking about, areas which are more than cook stoves. So we are talking about, can we do some capacity building for other livelihood opportunities that we have identified through our work? Whether it is, date palm, that the geography has abundant date palm. And we have seen a lot of tribal women using date palm chatais. So they weave it as a natural fiber. And that's very interesting because I didn't know that you could make chatais out of date palm. And this is through the eyes of people who come travel with me, like Gopal, who actually look at these things because I'm looking at cook stoves. But then there's a lot more that is happening in the village. And then on speaking to the people, we realized that, okay, can we help them build their capacities and make their craft better so that it becomes a product that could be sold. Similarly, we are talking about, bringing in other clean cooking technologies like induction-based technology or even introducing them to the concept of pressure cooker, that allows them to further have options. Now, they may not choose it, but because, they have consistently seen us in the village working with them for 6 months, I have a better chance to now tell them that, okay, why don't we try this? I'm also interested in creating energy entrepreneurship models in this kind of a geography where I know that, now we are able to somehow influence the behavior and we are able to somehow have them trust us.
That's so awesome because at the end of the day, for you, when you start off, it's a project.
Yeah.
But when they see that you're actually invested, because for them, it's not a project, it's their livelihood, it's their day-to-day life.
Exactly.
Talk me through a little bit more about the energy entrepreneurship. Have you already kickstarted some of these?
No. So it's a concept that I've had initial conversations with the community over there because, when...
Okay, just a second. When you say community, let's say it's a village, right?
Yeah.
Can you just walk me through the structure of the community? Like,
let me tell you the current geography. The Palghar district is in Maharashtra. On the one side, it shares the border with Gujarat, and the other side, it's sharing the border with Nashik district. And we go from Bombay, and it takes about 3.5 hours. So you go either via Bhiwandi or, Ghodbandar. And the 2 blocks that we are working are also separated by almost 3 hours. So Palghar is a huge administrative block, very, very big block. And large part of population who resides in Palghar are scheduled tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And they have historically been there for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Very popular among them are Varlis.
Mm-hmm.
And in Talasari, we work with the Varli tribes.
Okay.
Now, again, the unfortunate part is that Varli means that art form. The community that I work with, they do not practice that Varli art form
Mm-hmm.
that we, have a view of.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a tribe, they have many facets to their life.
Mm-hmm.
Blocks are further divided into villages,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then villages are divided into padas. Now, these
Okay.
padas are small settlements.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are working is one village which has 5 padas and about 1,000 households.
1,000 households.
Yes.
What's the population?
So if you take an average of about 5 to 6 members in each household,
Okay. So
but
roughly about 5,000.
5,000. I think it's less than that
Mhm.
because, we have to always factor in migration.
Hmm.
But I would say 3 to 4,000 is the population. And this is one large village with 5 padas.
How do you go about doing it? Is there someone from the communities, like
Yeah.
a community head or someone you speak with?
So I prefer to work with grassroots NGOs
Mhm.
or let's
Who are
say
already working in that?
already working in that
Mhm.
community or already are well entrenched through their own programs.
Mhm.
Because otherwise it becomes challenging for us to directly go and work. And I think in Mukhara, I'm working directly because I have worked with some people from Mukhara in the past.
Mhm.
And when I started discussing the project and I said that, do you think we should try our chulhas over here? He has seen my work. He said, yes, because, this is a very remote geography where the access to, let's say, LPG costs as much as the cylinder refill itself. It's so remote. But there is no grassroots organization in Mukhara block. Whereas in Talasari, we are working with a grassroots NGO that has been working in that geography for last about 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
Similarly, most of my projects that I have done across 14 states is on this model where, we work with organizations who have that relationship with the community.
And also must be aligned with your vision and goals.
Yeah. The problem statement has to be very well
Yes.
established. There have also been situations where I have done the initial feasibility in a particular community and I have realized that I don't think our cook stoves will work over here. That has happened. And I have also had situations where the alignment with the grassroots organization has not happened. So we have decided that instead of trying to unnecessarily push the mandate forward, it's better that, we don't go ahead with the project. And sometimes saying no is better. Because trying to do something that involves the community and then failing miserably at it becomes more of a challenge to resolve because they then lose trust.
Absolutely.
So that's my prep work, which is why I never jump into a project just like that. I try to take 3-4 months to understand the dynamics. In a lot of cases, we do want to also work with influencers like the Sarpanch. But that is a call that I leave for the grassroots organizations and the community influencers to decide. I always say that, look, if our work requires us to meet the BDO, block development officer, or district head, district magistrate, or somebody else who holds a big influence in the village, let's do that. And we have done that. We've sort of first gone and presented to the Sarpanch or the BDO about what the project is, taken their approvals, taken their help. But so this is all unique to the geography, the community. Sometimes the grassroots NGOs are very powerful. So they don't really need to take permissions. But when I'm working with, let's say, the forest reserves, then nothing can be done without the permissions of forest department. Now, I don't have that skill set because I'm not, like that person who's working day in and out.
With all the challenges that you've actually, come across, are there any future plans, or are you working on something to make this a much more smoother process in terms of training? Because I'm sure as you're undergoing training, you've already come across some real challenges,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So anything which you've thought of, which you feel can help improve the training process?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of aspects that can make our training more efficient and more productive. So, what we can't control is the participation because it depends on the community
Sure.
involvement in it. But what we can do is to make the models part of their daily life rather than trying to pull them away from what they are doing. Which is why I spend a lot of time in understanding where, when, what time. We try to make sure that we're at least having a meal together as part of the training program. And then can we also provide compensation for their time with us? Because everything is about how they spend their day. And if they were scheduled to go and do some Manrega labor work or somewhere else, for them to have earned money for those 4 hours, then it's very important for me to find a way to make sure that they don't lose that income. So a lot of my energy goes in explaining this to the funder. That we're asking them for their time to undergo this training process, but they might be doing an income generating work, or they might be working on their own farms because it's harvest season or sowing season. So yes, we want more and more people to attend this training program, but at the end of the day, it has to work for them. So those efficiencies are where I have to constantly keep working. Locations also become very, very important, because all our material is locally sourced material. So every time I'm able to prepare everything in advance, the training programs go smoothly. Water, the type of mud, we need small things that all needs to come from the households, like a tasla or an axe or a knife or bricks. Like in Mukhara, people said that, we can't give bricks because we have bought it for their own homes. So then I had to go and find like a brick kiln, to purchase the bricks. So I said, I don't need full bricks. You can give me what you have discarded. So stuff like that. Now, there are some things that, like I say, that, I can control from my side to make the training programs more efficient. But a lot of it still depends on where we are working. And from a technology point of view, the design is almost iterative of the chulas. So what we try to do is that as long as they are able to get the internal burn chamber accurate as per what we teach them, externally they can do whatever they want to their chulha. But yet I sometimes face challenges where after the training program and installation, when we go back to visit them, they have totally changed the way the stoves are. Sometimes it affects the efficiency and performance of the stove. So we have to restart the conversation saying that, okay, it's going to function. But remember, we spoke about the benefit of firewood reduction and smoke. You may not see that.
Correct.
So, this is a constant process.
Do you think that there is an opportunity for them to do it on the job itself? When you're training them to build this?
Yeah, it has to be on the job.
Yeah.
So, one more point let me add towards training. My objective is to work with units like self-help groups. Now, self-help groups are where women are already organized in a group with a sort of common objective. In many geographies, the self-help groups are very active, where women are, able to save money, they are able to rotate their money. There are also like new income opportunities. So it becomes easier for us to work with a group that is all more or less homogeneously organized. So my first endeavor is to look for such SHGs. And SHG naturally will have a leader. And that's very important for me because even amongst a group of women, I would like a leader to take the lead.
Right.
Who then becomes the spokesperson of what we are trying to do. Every time we are able to get that model going, results are much better. As opposed to a scenario where we have to put together a group of women. And that group has to be homogeneous to a large extent because this is not the work that can be done by single person. It's a group activity.
Correct.
I need 8-10 women to mix the mud. I need 8-10 women to build the building blocks. And we need at least 2 or 3 women to actually install one chulha. We need men as well. Because a lot of the tasks that we have are better. I'm not saying that women can't do it. But it's always good to have a mix of men and women in the training program. Now, interesting part is that, when we do these training programs, men also become interested in cook stoves, which they earlier may have not been. So when they become a part of this, then that's when a lot of them become interested in also the problem and how this can help.
Yes.
So this is a participative, collaborative process. The more participation and collaboration, the better the results are.
At Between Us, we truly believe that the first conversation we have is with ourselves.
Yes.
And I can clearly see that every step of the way you've had that conversation with yourself as you transitioned into SCF, right? Do you see that when you spoke about energy entrepreneurship, have you kind of identified a few people who probably could be future leaders and take this initiative beyond where it is today?
Yeah. So energy entrepreneurship is, again, a grassroots work. When I say energy entrepreneurship, my idea is that the woman should be able to choose what is best and most important choice for her house when it comes to energy drudgery. Be it cooking, be it lighting, be it, livelihood related, agricultural related, be it mobile charging, whatever. And also share it with other women and other households in our community with the ability to earn income with it. So the model is technology or solutions agnostic, but it is created out of the belief that household, that woman knows what she requires. So it comes with certain amount of understanding. And that's the work that we have to do.
Of course, technology is going to play a big role in it. And knowing the space you are in, it will involve a lot of personal investment of the people whom you're working for, correct? Is there something you have currently in your mind that this is where you want to take this forward? Do you have any ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, sure. And I think this year has been a great year for Smokeless Cookstove Foundation because of the Godrej Design Lab Fellowship opportunity that we received to do this intensive work in Palghar without the checks and balances that other types of funding put in. Because now when I say that, let me create 10 clean kitchens in Talasari. So they will have our improved cook stove. They could have induction. They could have a pressure cooker. They could have an LED bulb.
Because it's the partnership is allowing you the flexibility to bring in.
Yes. And then when I say that, my kitchen has a gas, it has a mixer grinder, it has a microwave, it has a toaster maker, and I'm free to choose which I want at what point in time. Why can't a rural woman also have that flexibility?
Sure.
Who are we to tell her that abhi gas mila hai to gas pe hi banao? Okay, there are certain things that they cannot cook on the gas, like the bhakris. every time we visit, I'm very intrigued to know where they are cooking their bhakris. And more often than not, the answer is that, only for bhakri we are using the traditional chulha. For rest of the cooking, we are using the improved cook stove. Now, to me, that's a choice that she is making, na. So it's all about that. Entrepreneurship also has to be choice.
Sure.
My job is to be able to tell them what those choices are. And then the other big aspect is, the financial viability of it. Now, very important aspect of our work is that nothing should be distributed for free. Whether it is equipment, whether it is, some sort of a gadget or whatever, the moment it's passed on to the community free of cost, they do not value it.
I'm so happy you actually stated this, because this is very important.
Yes. So again, that depends on the kind of investors and donors you are working with. Because if it's a program that is about just distributing 100, 200, 500, whatever they want to.
Those are just numbers. You have a checklist
And a
it's
photo
done.
opportunity.
Yes.
But you're not even concerned whether the boxes have been opened. And most likely they won't be. You'll come across many organizations who do this Alfonso distribution or Laddu distribution campaigns in these remote villages. What is the point of introducing them to something that they will never be able to access in their lives, or being able to buy it once a year?
Yeah.
It actually creates a different mechanism, because when somebody asks them to work towards, let's say, a mango plantation, then they don't want to. Because there is somebody who comes and distributes something free of cost to them. So that happens many times in our work, where they get so habituated with other people, other organizations coming and donating things for them, that they lose the dignity of labor.
Yeah. And that was the exact word I wanted to use, dignity of labor.
Yeah.
Tell me something, especially this whole transition to a smokeless stove. Have you seen or noticed emotional wellness with the women who you work with? Because I think they may not give impetus to health, but it affects them in a big way. And when this transition has happened, have you noticed over the few communities you have worked with, how they come across after using it for a while? Or is it that you finish work and then you move on and you don't get to interact with them?
I would love to stay connected, but to be able to see the transition in the emotional quotient and emotional health pertaining to what we do over a period of time, I think it requires continuous work. And which is why the model that we are now working on is, from improved mud cook stove, we want to shift to other technologies, other models, so that it allows us to stay with the community over a period of time. Now, for me, emotional wellness is where they remember the work that we have done after many years.
Yeah, and the fact that it's also, in many ways, when this transitioning is also happening, it's also empowering them. And I think in many ways, when the empowerment happens, the emotional wellness quotient actually improves. I mean, you're stronger.
Yeah.
And,
so what we see is, when we tell them about certain issues related to traditional cooking that affects them, and gives them that importance. And when after many months, we hear them saying the same narrative to other women in their community, that's empowerment. Because they are now able to pass on this information to other women in their community. Of course, what they do with that information is again their choice. But at least now these set of women know a little bit more about something that affects their lives directly. The other very crucial set of individuals in our work is the children.
Hmm.
Because indoor air pollution has linkage to child's health as well.
Yeah.
And if they are exposed to harmful smoke within the age group of 0 to 3 or even in prenatal stage, stunted growth and malnourishment is the immediate outcome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're all interconnected in many ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you have seen any rural household, a new mother or an infant child or even a younger child is generally hovering around, where the mother is cooking.
In many ways, I think when that happens, even the family dynamics, the social structure, because I think in many ways what you're doing is also, you may not want to call it, but the way I see this is also bringing about some kind of a change in the way the family lives together, the community lives together. Because sometimes when we have these challenges and we tend to normalize them, it's somebody is unwell, it's a part of our life. We are living inside a house full of smokes. This happens, but
Yeah.
I think they are also able to explore a life much beyond that what they have anticipated. So in that way, you're actually bringing about changes, even from a social structure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the dynamics are shifting very fast because why the younger generation plays a very critical role in what we are trying to do is that they will, given a choice, they would want to choose better for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, because they have the exposure, they should have that kind of financial means as they grow
Yeah.
up. Especially in some states, it's more. Like Maharashtra, there is a lot of emphasis on Anganwadis and primary schools. And it's good to see that, households are pushing hard to send their kids to these institutions because they will become more informed individuals. And, even at home, how it works to answer to your emotional wellness is when they see their mothers choosing something which is better for them. That is why even for me, LPG usage is very crucial because, households that are able to use LPG even sparingly, there is a difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that change has happened in the past few years with
Yeah, about
LPG
5 to
reaching
6
out.
years.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. So that's very, very important. It's very important for I have seen intergenerational dynamics where, let's say, the daughter and the daughter-in-law would not want to go to the forest for firewood because she has to go for some job or she has to send her kids to school. So in many families where you have intergeneration dynamics, the older lady would probably continue to cook on the chulhas. But the younger generation is preferring to cook on something that is going to save her time and it's convenient. So the more there is awareness about it, again, I am technology agnostic. My point is that that piece of technology or a piece of cook stove should work for that household.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
induction works for them, then it's my job to tell them that there is something like this. And then together we can work out a mechanism where they are able to find a way to be able to purchase it. Or it's my job to the whole policy framework.
I can actually visualize a process map. It's like, and to every individual household probably would have their own process map in the way they.
Yeah. But if they don't know, then how will they make a choice? And, what we can do through our work and, the kind of work that you're doing is to make sure that we reduce that gap by exposing them to the technology.
True. So we come to the end of the segment of What's Brewing. And hopefully when we meet again, there'll be more coming from you. So Nitisha, we are coming to the final segment of the podcast. And these are rapid fire questions. Short answers, but if you want to elaborate, you're free to do so. We begin with this or that. Solar power or wind power?
Wow. At the moment, solar.
Reusable bags or compostable bags?
Reusable.
Urban farming or community gardens?
Community gardens.
Biking to work or carpooling?
Biking to work.
Eating locally or eating organic?
I want to choose both, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say eating locally
Mm-hmm.
because that seems to be more easier on the pocket right now.
Paper books or ebooks?
Paper books.
Electric cars or public transport?
Again, interesting, but at the moment, electric cars,
Bamboo products or recycled plastic products?
bamboo products,
Plant-based diet or meat once a week?
plant-based diet.
Okay, so we have the second segment within the rapid fire. We call it fun and interactive. If you could have dinner with any environmental activists, who would it be and why?
I would prefer to have dinner with a wildlife photographer,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who I follow on Instagram, Shazang,
Mm-hmm.
simply because he's able to capture emotions of wild animals,
Mm-hmm.
which means that the wild animals are perhaps comfortable in his environment. So that's an amazing quality to bring out. And just the sheer allure of what these wildlife photographers do really captivates my imagination.
What's the most surprising thing that you've learned while working with Smokeless Cookstove Foundation?
That you can work very hard to what you believe in, but ultimately, if the lady in the house rejects what you're trying to do, then that is the most humbling and interesting learning that I've had. That anything surprising can happen.
And I know there must be several such experiences for you, right?
Yeah.
Does it push you even harder to go out there?
Initially, I used to be very irritated because when I started in this sector, some of the case studies that I studied, that I kind of looked at, one of the big reasons for solutions not being accepted was cost. So cost barrier was considered to be, or is still considered to be, a very big obstacle when we talk about distributed home technologies like the clean cook stoves. So when we came up with a zero cost solution, which has to be built by hand, and in the process we transfer the knowledge also to the user. After that, also sometimes we see that the households do not go for complete adoption, or sometimes even partial adoptions. And I used to find it very, very, it used to haunt me as to why, even when we have simplified the solution so much and made it so much closer to what their traditional cook stoves are, why is it such a challenge for them to just start using it?
But did you
to
also feel
the-
that maybe like did you over time maybe you've tried thinking from their perspective, right? Like,
Yeah. So my irritation led to the fact that, I am not responsible for the final choice they make. I can only share with them what I know, provide the choices to them, and allow them to choose organically. Only when they see the benefit of what this brings to them will they use it. And it's about behavior change. Even in my house, if somebody comes and says that, okay, you please stop using the gas and start using XYZ technology, my initial reaction would be that, listen, I know what works in my kitchen.
right.
So let me decide. Even if I accept it, even if they give it to me for free and I keep it in my house, I'm going to take my own sweet time to start using it. And
True.
only after using it, or I may reject it, saying this doesn't work for me, because I don't have the time to unravel a new technology
True.
or a new
True.
way of cooking. Given that their lives, especially the lives of women who work in the village, we know that every single minute of theirs is precious because it accounts for a chore that they have to fulfill
Right.
for their family.
And they're unbelievable multitaskers, right?
Yet they have no choice
Yeah.
because miles for water, miles for firewood, very, very, fragmented opportunities to income generation at a consistent level. Constantly, they have to deal with now what we call as climate changes. Okay, we get showers, but when showers happen in their areas, their roofs fall down, which means, again, so much of their man hours go in the repair. Or, for instance, they are, even if they are doing agriculture for self consumption, they are still at the mercy of nature. And earlier, the communities were able to predict the rain patterns, which would not be so different from what they may have prepared their farms to be. But right now, they can't predict when are the showers going to come, when is the pre-monsoon supposed to be, what is the right time for them to actually do the sowing, when should they prepare their farm, all of those things, which so they were in sync with the timing of the weather patterns, which has now totally gone, which means that they are living on the edge each and every day. And in that, if I go and put a technology or put a innovation that I know is for their benefit, but I have to allow them that time and space to sort of, get accustomed to it and see the benefit for themselves.
Nitisha, if you had one superpower to solve one environmental issue instantly, what would it be?
Forests,
Mhm.
forest preservation.
If you can describe the Smokeless Cookstove Foundation's mission in 3 words.
That's a tough one. Continuous learning together with communities.
Okay, I'll take that. What's your favorite eco-friendly product that you use daily?
A bag, a cloth bag.
What's the most memorable reaction you have received from someone using a smokeless cookstove for the first time?
Oh, that's, I have plenty.
Anything which stands out for you? I know that it's a wholesome experience, but
Yeah. So when the lady says that her neighbor knocks at her door and says, "Mujhe bhi aisa chulha chahiye," I think that is for me a big positive.
what's one eco-friendly habit you wish everyone would adopt?
Saving of water.
What was your aha moment that led you to start the Smokeless Cookstove Foundation?
When I saw that how interestingly designed mud cook stove can change the dynamics so much that it reduces smoke, firewood consumption, time, and the cooking pattern of a household for good. That was a big aha moment for me.
How do you unwind and connect with nature?
Well, fortunately for me, my work happens in communities that are on the periphery of nature. So I have many days where I'm in forests and in villages with the natural environment. But back home, we are a very a household with a lot of plants, and a lot of time goes in tending to them. We're a vegetarian household, and lot of emphasis on yoga and spirituality in my house. Good, healthy cooking, plant-based cooking.
So we come to the last segment of the rapid fire. Some thought-provoking questions. How do you see the role of women in leading the charge against household air pollution?
Well, they have to take the charge. There is no other way that we'll be able to shift the needle on indoor household air pollution, simply because they are bearing the brunt of it. And it's them who gets affected. I would say 90% of the effect is on them, their health, their time, their drudgery, everything that they do. So unless they change, I don't think we'll be able to tackle this.
I think to a large extent, Nitisha, this also holds true for even tier 2 and tier 1 cities too.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
What has been the most challenging cultural adaptation you've had to make your training programs?
That's a very, very good question, because since our work is a collaborative model where I can't work without the community participating in it from the beginning and 100%, I have to be prepared for changes and dynamic changes that happen all the time. For instance, I have to take into consideration when there are festivals, when is the wedding period. They might be busy on the farm, so I can't really push them to come and attend the training programs or install the cook stoves. Or there is like some sort of a mishap in the village. And these are communities that live together, work together, laugh together, cry together.
It's like one big family
Yes. So
working.
if something happens in one particular household, in a community, the whole village sort of makes it their festival, their moment of joy or sadness. And I have to be conscious of that. So whenever we do training programs, we take that into account that our planning may undergo change.
In your opinion, what is the biggest misconception about household air pollution?
I wouldn't use the word misconception, but we have to be conscious of the fact that indoor air pollution cannot be looked at as an isolated phenomena. It is linked to behavior change. So when we say that we want to reduce indoor air pollution as the outcome of a clean cooking program, we have to take into account what is the community that we are working with, what are their present environment in which they are subjected to indoor air pollution. How much of it is cultural, how much of it is behavioral, how much of it is habitual, what is the opportunity to shift what part of it as step one.
Can you share an example?
Like for instance, when we study the baseline scenario, we also consider where they cook. Are they cooking indoors or outdoors?
Okay.
Because if they are cooking indoors, then obviously the factor of indoor air pollution becomes a dominant factor. But if they are cooking outdoors, there is still, smoke emission, but it's not spreading so much inside the house. So we have to take that into account when we are planning programs. So what we try to do is that we prioritize households where most of the cooking is happening indoor. We also see whether they have a window in their cooking area. We also see where do the children and the elders spend most of their time. How close are they to a cook stove? And, there are other factors to indoor air pollution. When they clean the homes, when they sweep, it adds to, certain kind of elements to the pollution. If there is a smoker inside the house, that sort of also adds to it. They also do a lot of fumigation that they do for seed preservation a lot of time, or for cleaning out impurities. So they use smoke. I mean, if you go to any farmhouse in a forest where electricity is not continuous and there are mosquitoes, you will use smoke. So there are lots of factors that contribute to the phenomena of indoor air pollution, out of which cooking is dominant. But lots of factors have to be studied. So to answer your question, indoor air pollution has to be studied together with several factors and not just in isolation.
Sure. How do you measure the impact of Smokeless Cookstove Foundation's work in the communities you serve?
So there are certain indicators that we follow at the beginning of the project. First would be to establish the problem statement of indoor air pollution and its related factors. But like I shared that, a lot of the time the woman in the house is not really concerned about the smoke. So then we change the narrative and try to understand how much time does she spend in collecting the firewood. How much time is she spending cooking on the traditional chulhas? What are the other issues that she faced while cooking and collecting of the fire?
Do you have some kind of a matrix?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We try to get as much quantifiable information to these parameters. It's not always easy to get specific answers from the community because they don't measure time the way we do, or
True.
they don't measure distance the way we do.
Mhm.
So we have to work with approximations, and which is why a local person who understands their language is very important when we are asking these indicators. He is able to say that they go to this forest nearby,
Mhm.
which is approximately these kilometers, and everybody in the village goes to the same forest.
Mhm.
They leave at before the sunrise, and they come back. So these are the kind of responses that we get, and then we obviously sort of try to quantify it. Once we do the program, obviously how many number of women we are able to train, women and men, how many of them work with, like, how many households do we install the cook stoves in. Generally in our initial project, we account for cost or income aspects to everybody who goes through the training program and who installs cook stove in their household.
All right.
So there is a per unit cost that we account for. We take a certain number that, okay, let's try and do at least 100 cook stoves in this period
Mhm.
as part of the initial project.
Okay.
So these are our numeric metrics: number of people, number of cook stoves, what is the income that they are able to earn. And then you have the indicators that are specifically towards adoption ratio. How many
How-
of them are using it? Are they cooking their entire meal, or they are using, let's say, traditional chulha for something? Some of them also have gas, and they generally end up using gas in emergency. So
Yes.
we ask all these questions after maybe like about 2 months of their experience with the cook stoves, which we generally hit upon an interim time frame. And then let's say by the end of 7-8 months, 6 months is what we give for a household.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of time you should give.
We need to give more, but that's
The
bare
minimum
minimum.
time, yeah.
Bare minimum.
True.
And then at the end of that period, we then sort of do a baseline to end line comparison and try to get the same metrics in terms of data measurement. Sometimes we also use a weighing scale for firewood measurement to actually see the difference in reduction. I haven't used a smoke sensor technology because it's very expensive.
Correct. But I know
chip-based
that they're
technology.
available.
Yeah, they are available, but in improved mud cook stove, you need to have an external
True.
metering technology, which is quite expensive. And it also measures a whole bunch of things, like I said, not just the smoke from the chulha. Then to extract those values become a little challenging.
How
But
often have you had to go back to the drawing board?
I think each community that we work with, or each new geography that we work with, I have to start from scratch.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to start their own initiative in the sustainable development?
I would say that you need to do your homework right, because there's no dearth of innovation and technology in today's time. Lots of people are working towards really good groundbreaking technologies that can solve a lot of problems. But to make it accessible for that user who's going to use it and make that difference, that's a different journey altogether.
If I can add this, that we also need to, take into account the real needs and the real challenges of the people for whom we are developing. I think most of the time we just go all out and get super excited about the technology and not realizing how it can actually help people on the ground. And I think that's very important. I mean, if I can call you a social entrepreneur, if that's the right term, I'm sure some of these you must have identified during your.
Yeah. The form that we are currently using in terms of the training and the actual physical dimensions of the cook stoves, that has emerged from the community input. From the time that I started about 8 years ago, the stoves look quite different. And that is because each time we have worked with the community, they have given their input. Even this time, my current project in Palghar, somebody from the community gave us a very good input in terms of improving the design. And it's now become a,
True.
it's a practice now.
How do you stay motivated when facing the daunting statistics about global mortality due to air pollution?
Yeah, that's a tough one. But I have sort of, I keep telling myself that I'm not going to be able to shake the world out of a particular problem that I work with, or arrogantly think I'm going to change it or remove it from the face of the earth. But if I don't go today and work with 5 women from the community and provide the solution to 10 households, then what will happen to those 10 households? So my motto has always been one chula at a time, one village at a time.
One chula at a time, one village at a time.
Yeah.
This could be a catchphrase,
Yeah, it is in
Is it?
a lot of lot of campaigns that we do.
What would you say if I were to ask you 3 points one should be mindful of when it comes to going all out in technology?
First and foremost thing that I have learned from my study of Daniel Christian Wall's designing regenerative cultures is today's innovation can be tomorrow's dead end. Right? So today you develop a technology that seems to answer the problem that is very current, but tomorrow it can become a burden. For instance, plastics.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we need to be mindful of that the technology will undergo change and should undergo change. Secondly, only technology doesn't help.
Yeah.
You have to bring in the user of that technology in equal importance, if not more.
It is the enabler. It's the catalyst. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's for the people, right?
It is for the people, and people need to be comfortable. People need to view this as the right choice. So the second point. And third is the fact that, is the technology for trying to resolve the problem, or it is for profiteering? Which is more important? Because if it's
That's
the latter...
tricky, right? That's a bit tricky.
No. If it's the latter, if you start, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, if you start the game with the bottom line, with the numbers, with production, with distribution, numbers, kind of a thing, when people ask that 5-year business plan bana ke de do, I know it's important to raise investments, but
For sure.
unless and until you have proven the continuous use of that technology, sustained use of that technology over a period of time with a lot of work, with the mindset that, you might need to change and adapt as you go along, profits will roll in. And the technology developer cannot be the only one where it needs to impact financially.
Sure.
It needs to have a bearing on the end user's economic status also. So it has to be a complete last mile financial gain for a technology to work.
So the penultimate question is, how do you think individuals like me or people around, how can they support you in your mission?
Well, I think talking about it and, keeping the problem statement relevant, because a lot of us are far removed from it. We have indoor air pollution in our homes, but we're not so conscious of it because we're not seeing visible smoke. And we're not going to the forest to collect firewood. So how is it relevant? But it is relevant, right?
True.
So to reduce that gap between knowing that each problem statement related to the environment affects urban and rural together, I think just to be conscious of that.
True.
That we're in it together and it's a collaborative space. You don't have to do direct action, but supporting through knowing and acknowledging is as good, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we always say for anything, acknowledgement and acceptance comes first before we do anything.
Yeah.
All right. The final question of this segment. What future projects or innovations are you most excited about for the Cookstove Foundation?
So I'm one of those people who's not wedded to what I do today. And I think I'm very excited about experimenting or taking the experimenters' innovation to the ground through our work, where we may be able to reduce the gap between the developer and the user, whether it is solo-based innovations. We are trying to bring induction-based cooking to the communities that we are currently working with. And we are also trying to see how we can include more institutional setups in our framework. So if we are working in a community in households, how can I also include schools and Anganwadis in my program?
Extend the reach, you mean? I mean,
and the awareness.
And the
Because
awareness,
if
for
the
sure.
children can understand the issues that their mothers face early enough, then when they are in a position to make choices, they will be able to make a better choice. Because
I also feel that this should not be confined only to, remote village. I think these kind of conversations, or maybe could even be a part of curriculum in the schools.
Yes.
I mean, when kids are growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've had very interesting conversations with very many schools who have invited me to talk about our work and aspects of sustainability. But I think if it's not done at a fundamental level,
Yes.
just one session here and there, it's not that helpful, because like I said, especially the work that I do, we're very far removed from that in the urban space.
Yeah.
So children going to IB schools and all of that, a lot of them don't know what chula is. So probably their families, if they are in their native places, their grandmothers might still be doing some bit of cooking on their chula.
I'm sure.
So they wouldn't know. But I'm not saying they have to. And my task is to bridge that gap.
No, but as you said, awareness, right? Just to know how.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, but I took a conscious call to keep my work in the rural communities. I know that indoor air pollution is a very big issue in urban slums also.
Absolutely.
But I sort of, to kind of give a semblance to where I want to work, I decided that I want to work with those communities who have either never been exposed to opportunities to, use improved ways of cooking, or their exposure is very partial.
Okay.
Whereas in urban slums, it requires a different mindset, which is quite different from when you work with the rural communities. I don't know which is more challenging, to be very honest.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't compare. But the thing is that in some way or form, there are challenges. And
if you ask me, working in urban slums might be more challenging. Because you're dealing with the set of people whose lives are tougher because they are displaced and migrant. So they don't even have their patch of land, which a forest community or people who are living, the tribals who I work with, tribals are first settlers. Adivasi, the term Adivasi means first settlers.
Yeah.
So most of those communities are landowners. They might be selling their patches of land in today's scenario, but they still have something to hold on to. They have homes that are bigger. They have some backyard garden. They have some animals. There's some harmony with nature in their lives. But urban slums are people who are so displaced that they have sort of lost their identity.
Sure. And the fact of the matter is, and I, something which I truly believe, and I share this all the time, that, there's really no climate justice without economic justice. And most of these people who are displaced are, perils of climate change, right? And well, I think you've answered all of the questions amazingly well. So thank you. And we come to the end of the rapid fire segment.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
interesting to view it as a rapid fire.
If I were to ask you, has your daily life kind of changed before and after SCF?
Completely. Completely. Because I came into this realm of this work with no baggage
Mm-hmm.
and no understanding and no perspective.
Mm.
And I took it as more like an experiment
Mm.
and something that kind of evoked my curiosity. Every single day I would sit with, what am I doing? It would be because of curiosity.
Mm.
Curiosity to go to places that I had not found on the map easily. Curiosity to go to communities who only existed for me in my geography and history textbooks. Curiosity to see how they live. And can I do some work with them? And whereas before Smokeless Cookstove Foundation, in a corporate setup, I think your day is pretty well mapped out with a very clear to-do list.
Yeah, and even then there is so much of chaos, right?
Even then, there is so much of chaos.
Nitisha, thank you so much for your time. I think this was an amazing conversation and I wish this could go on forever. I think the kind of work you're doing, and I hope you're able to inspire a lot more people. I hope there are people who, after listening to this conversation, can, reach out to you in any ways they can support you in this endeavor. So thank you very much. So that's it from here at Between Us for this episode. As I always say at the end of every conversation, that the most important conversation is the one we have with ourselves. So let us have this conversation. Let us continue to have conversations with ourselves about issues that matter to us, issues that make a difference to not just ourselves, but our community at large. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. This podcast was recorded at Manikpod Studios in Chembur, Mumbai. Our sound engineer is Moinak Chakraborty, and our producers are Arnav Dogra and Santosh Kumar. Our associate producer is Samyak Kamble. The video for this episode was processed at Viewfinder's Edit. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.